The following workflow to develop is the System1 download monthly reports, and the task of this workflow is to download all the available monthly reports based on the client tax ID. So for the precondition, the System1 is login and on the download monthly report page. And for the post action, all the available reports are downloaded for a given tax ID in a given year into a given location. And this workflow will have three arguments. And by the way, guys, if you enjoy this video or find it helpful, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed to keep you updated with new tutorials and tips. So going back, in the UiPath Studio, right click on the System1 folder and select add a new sequence, and we will name this sequence System1 download monthly reports and hit the create button. Then we will create the three arguments for this workflow. So the first one is the tax ID, and second one is the year, and last is the report directory path. So all directions are in and all the argument types are string. Next is we will be downloading reports in this workflow. So having a dedicated folder to store all the reports of a specific tax ID is helpful. So we'll start with that. Look for an assigned activity, and this assign, we will use this activity to create a report folder path. So I will say here report folder path. Now in the to field, we will create a variable by pressing Ctrl K, and we will name this variable report folder path. And now for the value, it should be path dot get full path, and that is the full path of our in report directory path argument. And we will concatenate the tax ID argument and a backslash. So later you will see what is the purpose of this folder path. Later, once we are on the testing part, you will see how is the structure of the folder will be created. So just hit OK after doing that. And next we will be adding a create folder activity to create the folder based on the path that we formulated. So here I will just say create folder based on the tax ID. So the folder name, we will be using the report folder path variable. Next is we need to loop through all the months and check if there's an available report for each month. So to do that, um, we will be needing a variable that will contain all the months name. So go to the variable tab and let's name the variable array months. And for the variable type, it should be an array variable type, and it should be of type string, and hit OK. Now we will be assigning a default value to this variable. So for that, I will just copy it, and I will also put this in the description of the video if you don't want to manually type it. But these are all the year months name from January to December. And our next step is to loop through all that month's name. So to do the looping, we will be needing a for each loop activity. So look for a for each loop activity, and this will be looping through all the month's name. Now for the for each field, I will be using month as the item name, and for the in field, we will be using the array months variable. Now make sure that the type argument selected is of type string, because if not, it might cause an error. Next is we need to populate the monthly report download form. So we need to provide a tax ID and then select the month as well as the year. So we'll start with the task ID. So going back to the UiPath Studio, we will be needing a type into activity. So look for a type into activity, and this will be typing into the task ID field. Then let's indicate the vendor tax ID field, and let's check the selector. Oops, edit selector, and let's see if there are other attributes that we can use for this element. And I can see an ID, so we will be using that. An excellent practice, always validate the selector after you made an update. Now let's hit save. Now we have the ID attribute added for the selector of this activity. So hit OK after that. Now for the text, we will be assigning our in text ID argument, and also make sure to enable the simulate type property. Next to that, we will be selecting the month. So to do that, we need a select item activity. So look for a select item, and here I will just indicate that this will be selecting the month. Now click the indicate on screen and select the month. So you will probably get this error as well on your end, but there's a way to fix it. So if you get that error, just hit the OK button and then go to the target property. Just expand the target property and click this button beside the selector field. And once this dialog shows up, just click open in UI Explorer, and here we will click indicate element again and make sure to activate the monthly report page, and again indicate the month drop down element, and now it captures a selector or the source code. Then from here, make sure to select the select tag. So the select tag is the HTML element for drop down buttons or combo boxes. So make sure to select that, and here we will be adding the ID attributes. After that, just hit validate. You can also highlight just to verify if it's identifying the correct element. Then after that, just hit save. And in the UiPath Studio, just hit OK. And the only catch of doing that is it will not get an informative screenshot, but we can still take an informative screenshot by clicking this button and just draw a square or rectangle to the screenshot or to the element that we are targeting. Now for the item, that should be our current month item. So remember, this month is our item name that loop through the collections of the month. So if it's January, then the value of this will be January, and so on. Alright, and what else we should do in here? I think that's all for the select item activity. Next, we need to select the year value, and for that, we will be needing another select item activity. And let me just update the label name to indicate that this is for the year drop down. Now indicate on screen, and we get the same error. So again, hit OK. Click the button beside the selector field of the activity property and open the UI Explorer. And here, click indicate element again, and you can press Alt Tab to activate the download monthly report page. Then indicate the year drop down. All right, so okay, it captures it. Now from the UI Explorer, again select the select tag or the select HTML tag, and once that is activated, make sure to select the ID. It's already selected, so just validate and hit save. And if we go back to Studio, we have now selector for this activity. Just hit OK, and we will also take an informative screenshot so it's easier to identify what this activity is doing. Now for the item, that should be our in-year argument. So make sure to assign that. And then next is we need to click the um, download report button. So for that, we will be adding a click activity. So look for a click activity, and I will just indicate that this will be clicking the download report button. Next is indicate that button. It's gone. Alright, so indicate download report. Then let's check the selector. Okay, I think this one is good because it already have an ID. So we will not modify that. Just hit OK. Then we will also enable simulate click. And after that, the next step is to check if there's an available report after clicking the download report button. In the Chrome browser, if there's an available report, it will automatically open a Save As dialog. And if there's no available report on the selected month, it will show a web page alert saying that there is no report found. Maybe it would be better if I show you a sample. So let's go back to home first, and I will be looking for a sample generate yearly report items. Maybe we can try this first one. So I will just get its tax ID manually. So copy this. Now let's go back to the download monthly reports. By the way, you can navigate to that page by going here on the reports and then click download monthly report. And let's enter that sample tax ID. For the month, we will select January. For the year, it should be 2021. Now if we click download report, and if there's an available report, then this Save As dialog will show up. Now, let's try a different month. Now, if there's no available report on the selected month, this web page alert will show up saying that there's no report found for that selected month and year. So we have two options to use as the reference to check if there's available report or not. We can use the save as dialog, or we can also use this web page alert. And I will recommend to use the save as dialog as a reference to identify the report availability. So let's go back to the January sample. I will click download monthly report, and in the UiPath Studio we will be adding an element exist activity. So look for the element exist activity, and I will just indicate that this will be looking for the save as dialog. Now let's indicate that save as dialog screen. Make sure to indicate the complete page, and let's just check the selector. And here we can remove the some unreliable selector like the CLS. I will just manually remove that here. Uh, I would recommend to delete it instead of just unchecking it, because if you uncheck it here, it will just say omit here, and I don't know if that is working fine, but I prefer to just delete it. And if you also find some attribute that has a number value, make sure to check that first. Maybe that's also unreliable. Just retain some attributes and property that you think is standard. For example, in this dialog, it has a title save as, it also has a name save as, and it's a dialog type of element. So after making any changes on the selector, just hit the validate button. Also make sure to click the highlight to ensure that it's still identifying the correct element. And after you verify it, just hit the OK button. And now we will be creating a variable for the output property of this activity. So again, Control K, and we will name this variable save as dialog exist. And for the timeout milliseconds, we can use 5,000 milliseconds because by default, if I'm not mistaken, it will be waiting for 30 seconds for this dialog to show up. And we don't want that because that would be a long period of time, especially if there's no available report. We have to wait 30 seconds for each month. So depending on the speed of your internet, because sometimes the response of the website depends on that, you might have to adjust your timeout value. But for me, in my end, I think 5,000 milliseconds or 5 seconds is enough to wait for that save as dialog to show up. So I will be using 5,000 for my timeout milliseconds value. And next to our element exist activity, we will be adding, or I will be adding an if activity. And this will check if save as or if report is available. And for the condition, we will assign our save as dialog exists variable. Now, if the save as dialog did appear, meaning there's an available report, the next step is if you will look at the site, we need to type in the file name as well as the path where we will be saving this report that we download. And remember, we started this workflow by creating a specific report path for each downloaded reports, and we will be using that. So to type the path for the file, we will be needing a type into activity, and that will be typing into the file name field. So I will indicate here type into save as file name, and I will indicate that field and edit selector to see if we need to adjust the element attributes. And here I think there are a lot there are a lot of need to be adjusted. So first I will be removing this control ID, and I will validate it first and try to highlight. It's all okay. Now I will try to also remove the CLS attribute. Hit validate. If we highlight, it is still indicating the correct element. And I guess all the remaining attributes are fine. The CLS attribute here are not containing a number value. So that should be good for me. And here we can see that the last CLS attribute is combo box, and we can also see that it's a combo box element type. So that should be good as well. So again, just make sure that your selector is still valid, and if you highlight, it's still indicating the correct target element. So hit OK after doing that. And for the for the text value, it should be the report folder path, and we will also concatenate the month name. So what will happen is like later, if we test it, there should be a folder path. There should be a report folder path in here. We will place it within the data folder, and the name of that folder is report. And then inside that, there's also another subfolder with the tax ID as the name. And inside that tax ID folder, there will be different subfolders where we will name each as a month. All right, and I think this should be good. So later we will see if this will work or not. Next here is we need to click the save button from this save as dialog. So we will be needing a click activity to do that. So look for a click activity, and I will just indicate that this will click the save button. Next, indicate that button, and we will check the selector. Here we can see another CLS attribute. I will try to remove that. I don't trust that attribute. For the control ID, let's validate it first and see if it's still working. Highlight it's okay. I will try to remove this control ID. Now let's try to validate again. It's still validating. Let's try to highlight, and it's still okay. So this will be my final selector for the click save as button. So I'll hit now OK. I don't recommend enabling the simulate click for buttons within the within a dialog like save as dialog. Similar to type into activity, I don't recommend enabling the simulate type for a scenario like that where you have to type into a dialog window. But you can experiment if that might be working or if you might encounter any problem. But anyways, I'm talking a lot of things, but I hope that it's also helpful and just to make you aware at least. All right, so now after we click the save button, um, that should be it for if the report is available. Now we also need to add a code if the report is not available based on the selected month. So, like for example, in the month of February, there is no available for this tax ID and for this year. So, if that happens, we need to click this OK button on the web page alert. So, in the else block of our if activity, so open the else block, we will be adding a click activity. And here I will just indicate web page alert OK button, and we will indicate that OK button, and let's edit the selector. There's a lot of attributes. Hmm, I think this is also good to me. We can replace this Google Chrome with wildcard, but I think this selector is only applicable for Google Chrome, but still that's a good practice to do that. So just highlight to make sure it's indicating the correct element, then hit OK. Right, and what else should we do in here? Okay, I think that should be enough. And after that, we can test if this workflow is working or not. But before we test it, make sure that you have the download monthly report page open and just refresh it to remove the some of the values. Next, we need to assign a default value to the three in arguments. So we need one for the tax ID, for the year, and for the report directory path. For the tax ID, I need a sample. I should have copied that sample. So let me find another sample. Find the sample on your data because if you copy the sample that I will be using, it might not be part of your test data. So make sure that you get a sample from your test data. So I will just use this one and then go to the UiPath Studio. I will assign that to my tax ID argument. For the year, it should be 2021. For the report directory path, we will be using this path, the data backslash report. All right. Why it's showing an error? Let me just try it again. Okay. So now, once you provided a default value to the in arguments, and again, your download monthly report page should be open, we can now test this file or workflow by clicking Run File. Oops, make sure that you are on the monthly report page. Why I'm not doing that? Okay, now we try the first item, and here we can see that it saves the data. Now for the February, there is no available report. And that is working for the rest, and that is what's supposed to happen. It will check each month on each tax ID if there are available report or not. So just to set your expectation during the testing part of this performer project, it will really take some time because you have to download different numbers of report per each tax ID. And yeah, it's good to set your expectation to that because it's not the same with our calculate client security hash exercise where you can run it in just a few minutes, as well as our dispatcher project. So I will just wait for this workflow to complete all the months, and we will explore the output later and explain some of the things that we did if there's some confusion in your mind. I think it's in the last month now. All right. So let me just try to explain some of the activity and things that we did here. So first, we assign a default value to our argument. We provided a sample tax ID year, and for the report directory path, this will be our directory path. Later, we will add this to the configuration file. So we started the workflow by creating a report folder path that will contain all the downloaded reports. So if you will check the syntax, it's concatenating the data report path to the tax ID. So if we will look at the project folder and hit refresh, you will see that there will be a report folder here and a subfolder that is named based on the tax ID being processed. And then there are month or there are report file within that folder that is named based on the month. And that happens on this loop part where we loop through all the month's name and then check the availability for each month. So if it's available, we will download the report and again name it to the month name. And if it's not available, um, we should click the web page alert OK button. And that's all for our download monthly reports workflow. For the next workflow, we will be next step is to create a merge monthly reports workflow. And again, I'll see you in the following video.